Look, I'm going to be honest with you. When I signed up to be a maintenance technician on the greatest diplomatic space station in the known galaxy, I thought I'd be fixing air filters and unclogging toilets. You know, normal stuff. Instead, I'm standing in front of Ambassador Thresk, a 7-foot-tall bird creature with iridescent feathers and an attitude problem, explaining how I accidentally destroyed the most important piece of technology in the entire station. "You broke the universal translator," Thresk said, his beak clicking in that way that definitely meant he was imagining my head on a pike. "Today, of all days." "You broke it today." In my defense, I said, holding up one finger. The coffee machine was leaking hydraulic fluid into the wall panel, and I thought I was disconnecting the beverage system, not the linguistic core processor. "They are on opposite sides of the station, Marcus Webb." "Are they, though? Are they really?" I was stalling. They were absolutely on opposite sides of the station. "Look, the wiring diagrams you guys use have like 40 different color codes, and I'm only human. We've got 3 cones in our eyes, not 17. Thresk's feathers ruffled, which I'd learned meant he was approximately 3 seconds from losing it completely. "The Keeper arrives in 1 hour. 1 hour. Human. Do you understand what this means?" I did, actually, because Thresk had been talking about nothing else for 6 weeks. The Keeper was some kind of big deal oracle from a species called the Vastru. They showed up every 10,000 years, spoke in something called the First Language, which was apparently the actual words that created the universe or whatever, and then left. Every species in the galaxy lost their minds over it. Theologians, scientists, military leaders, they all wanted to hear what the Keeper had to say. And now they'd be hearing it without a universal translator, because yours truly had confused a coffee maker with the fabric of interspecies communication. "I understand it's bad," I said. "Bad?" Thresk's voice hit a pitch that made my feelings hurt. "The Concordance hosts 3,247 species. Without the translator, we will have chaos, riots, possibly war. And the Keeper speaks only in the First Language, which no one has successfully translated in 10 millennia. So what I'm hearing is, we were already not going to understand them, and now we're just equally confused in a louder way?" Thresk looked at me like D just suggested we solve the problem by setting the station on fire. "Get out of my sight, human. Go to the Grand Hall. Try not to break anything else. And Marcus?" He leaned down, his predator eyes fixing on mine. "If this day ends in disaster, I will personally ensure you spend the rest of your career cleaning waste reclamation on a mining colony in the Outer Drift. Got it. Don't break stuff. Go stand in a corner." I gave him a thumbs up, which I knew translated as a vaguely obscene gesture in his culture, and headed out. The Grand Hall was already packed when I arrived. And I mean packed. Beings of every shape, size, and improbable biology you could imagine, all crammed together, all talking at once in their native languages. Without the translator running, it sounded like someone had shoved every animal on Earth into a blender and hit puree. I spotted Dr. Kimmett near the front, a small amphibian creature with huge eyes and perpetually damp skin. She was frantically checking the datapad, her 3-fingered hands shaking. Next to her stood Commander Krell, built like a tank with an exoskeleton and a personality to match. His species, the Karzan, had tried to conquer half the galaxy before the Concordance formed. Now they just scowled at everyone instead. I wedged myself into a spot near the back, between a methane breather in an environment suit and something that looked like a floating bag of angry slime. This was going to be a long day. The hall went dead silent when the Keeper arrived, which was impressive considering 30 seconds ago it had sounded like a zoo during feeding time. The Keeper, or Vessel of Echoes as they apparently preferred, wasn't what I expected. I'd been imagining some robed mystic or maybe a giant brain in a jar. Instead, Vinny, as I immediately decided to call them because I wasn't saying Vessel of Echoes every time, looked like a floating crystal chandelier that someone had taught to move. They shimmered and rotated slowly, catching the light in ways that hurt to look at directly, all sharp angles and impossible geometry. Beautiful, sure, but also deeply weird. Vinny floated to the center of the hall, and I swear the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Then they started speaking. I don't have words for what it sounded like. Imagine if physics had a voice. If mathematics could sing. It was harmonics and frequencies and sounds that seemed to come from inside my own skull. The air itself vibrated, and I could see ripples of distortion spreading out from Vinny, like they were physically reshaping reality just by talking. Immediately, every alien in the hall started shouting, "They speak of the Great Consumption! bellowed a Thorian diplomat, waving his tentacles. No, no, it is clearly a warning about stellar collapse, insisted a crystalline being near the front. Fools! Commander Krell's voice boomed. The Keeper speaks of power. Unlimited power awaiting those strong enough to claim it. I glanced at Dr. Kemet, who looked like she was about to cry. We cannot agree on even a single phrase, she whispered, more to herself than anyone. 10,000 years of preparation, and we understand nothing. The arguing got louder. Factions formed. The methane breather next to me started gesticulating angrily at a group of bipedal reptiles across the hall. Someone threw something. This was about to turn into the universe's worst bar fight. And through it all, Vinny just kept talking, serene and unbothered, speaking words that made my teeth ache and my vision swim. I'm not sure what made me actually start listening. Maybe it was because I'd already ruined everything, so I figured I might as well commit. Maybe it was because watching alien diplomats devolve into a shouting match was depressing. Or maybe, just maybe, I was bored enough to actually pay attention instead of panicking about job security. But I listened, really listened. And here's the thing. It wasn't random. The sounds Vinny made, they had patterns. Repeating sequences. Mathematical progressions. I'm not a genius or anything, but I'd spent 6 years studying engineering before I flunked out and became a maintenance tech. I'd seen these patterns before. Fibonacci sequences in the harmonic intervals. Quantum probability distributions in the frequency modulations. The entire speech was structured like an equation. I pulled out my datapad and started taking notes. Not translating words because there weren't any words, but writing down the mathematical relationships I was hearing. Ratios, sequences, algorithmic progressions. Dr. Kemet noticed me scribbling and edged closer, her eyes widening. What are you doing? She whispered. Math, I said, not looking up. I think Vinny's speaking in math. That is absurd. The first language is the tongue of creation itself, the divine words that shape the cosmos. Or, I interrupted, still writing, it's literally just the fundamental laws of physics expressed as sound. Which, if you think about it, is basically what creation would sound like anyway. You guys have been treating this like poetry when it's actually just really complicated calculus. She stared at me. Then at my notes. Then back at me. You are understanding this. I mean, parts of it. It's like listening to a programming language I halfway know. I don't get every word, but I can follow the logic. I paused, counting out a sequence. Okay, based on the pattern, the next sound should be... Vinny made the exact sound I'd predicted. Dr. Kemet grabbed my arm with her damp little fingers. Do that again, so I did. I tracked the mathematical progression, predicted the next harmonic, and Vinny delivered it right on cue. Then again. And again. By the 5th successful prediction, other aliens had noticed. The shouting died down. Ambassador Thresk pushed through the crowd, his eyes locked on me with an expression I couldn't read. Explain, he demanded. Now. It's not complicated, I said, which was absolutely a lie because it was incredibly complicated. But I was on a roll and feeling weirdly confident for someone who nearly caused an interstellar incident an hour ago. Vinny isn't giving you prophecies or mystical revelations. They're describing how the universe works using the actual mathematical principles that govern reality. Impossible, Commander Krell growled, pushing forward. His bulk made the crowd part like water. The first language is power, weapon potential. Not mere numbers. Numbers are power, my guy. That's literally what power is. Energy over time. Force times distance. It's all math. I gestured at my datapad. Look, see this sequence here? That's describing gravitational lensing around a black hole. And this part? That's quantum entanglement expressed as a harmonic relationship. Vinny's basically narrating the universe's source code. Dr. Kemet was frantically copying my notes to her own pad, her hands shaking with excitement. But why? Why speak this way? Why make it so difficult to understand? Maybe it's not difficult for them, I shrugged. I mean, we communicate in chemical signals and air vibrations shaped by meat flaps in our throats. That's pretty weird when you think about it. Maybe for the Vastru, this is just how you describe reality. No metaphor, no symbolism, just pure information. Ambassador Thresk looked like he was having a small existential crisis, his feathers flattening against his body. You are telling me that for 10,000 years, my species has been debating the philosophical implications of differential equations? I mean, when you put it that way, it sounds bad. We have fought wars over interpretations of the Keeper's words. Yeah, that tracks. Humans once had a war because someone threw a guy out a window. We're all pretty dumb when you get down to it. I went back to my notes, tracking another pattern. Okay, so Vinny's building towards something. Each sequence increases in complexity. It's like watching someone solve a really elaborate physics problem step by step. What problem? Dr. Kimmett asked, leaning so close I could feel her breath on my arm, which was moist and uncomfortable. I don't know yet. But based on the progression, we're heading towards some kind of coordinate system. Spatial relationships. Maybe location data? I tapped my pad, running quick calculations. If I'm right, Vinny's about to tell us where something is. Commander Krell's mandibles clicked together rapidly. The foundation, he breathed. The legends speak of it, the source from which all energy flows. Unlimited power for whoever finds it. Or it's the location of a really good restaurant, I muttered. Let's not jump to conclusions. But Krell wasn't listening. None of them were. Every being in that hall was now focused on Vinny with an intensity that made my skin crawl. This wasn't academic curiosity anymore. This was greed, desperation, the kind of energy that started wars. I looked down at my notes and realized I could predict what Vinny was going to say next. Not just the next sound, but the next several phrases. The mathematical progression was becoming clear. In another few minutes, I'd be able to calculate the final sequence before Vinny even spoke it. And suddenly, being the only person in the room who understood the cosmic oracle didn't feel like a fun party trick anymore. It felt like being the only person who knew where a loaded gun was hidden. Human, Thresk said quietly, his earlier anger replaced with something more dangerous, respect mixed with fear. Can you translate the remainder of the Keeper's speech? I looked at Vinny, still spinning and singing mathematics into the air. Then at the crowd of aliens watching me like I held the secrets of the universe, which, horrifyingly, I kind of did. Maybe, I said. But that doesn't mean I should. Vinny's speech was reaching a crescendo. The sounds grew more complex, the mathematical relationships more intricate. Every alien in the Grand Hall held their breath, or whatever their species did instead of breathing. The air felt electric, like reality itself was holding still. And then Vinny just stopped, mid-sequence, mid-equation. The sound cut off so abruptly that the silence felt like a physical slap. No, Dr. Kimmett whispered, her datapad slipping from her fingers. No. What happened? I asked, but I already knew. The mathematical progression had been cut off right before the resolution. It was like watching someone write out a formula and stop right before the equal sign. The Vastru never finish, Thresk said, his voice hollow. It is their way. They speak until their energy depletes, and the final words remain unspoken. For 10,000 years, this has been their tradition. That's the stupidest tradition I've ever heard. And I'm from a planet where we throw trees into our houses once a year. Commander Krell stepped forward, his weaponized limbs extending. Then we will extract the information by force. The Keeper knows the complete sequence. We simply need to make them share it. No, Dr. Kimmett jumped between Krell and Vinny, which was brave considering she came up to about his knee. The Vastru are sacred, inviolable. To harm a Keeper would unite every species in the galaxy against you. Then we have a stalemate, Krell said. But he didn't back down. The information exists but cannot be obtained. Unless ... double counts his eyes, all 6 of them. Turn to me. The human can calculate it. Oh no. I'm just a maintenance tech, I said quickly. I fix toilets. I'm not qualified to finish the cosmic equation of everything. But you can do it, Thresk said. It wasn't a question. I looked down at my datapad, at the sequences I'd mapped. At the mathematical progression that, yes, I could absolutely complete. The final coordinates were calculable. It would take me maybe 10 minutes to work through the equations. What's the foundation? I asked. Really? Thresk and Kimmett exchanged glances. Finally, Kimmett spoke. We do not know. The legends say it is the point from which all creation emanated. Some believe it is a source of infinite energy. Others think it is a weapon capable of unmaking reality. Some species believe it is the home of the gods themselves. Cool. So I'm deciding whether to give potential universe-ending information to a room full of heavily armed strangers. This is fine. This is a normal Thursday. Commander Krell moved closer, looming over me. Complete the equation, human. Or I will take your datapad and find someone who will. There are thousands of species here with better mathematicians than me, none of whom understood the first language until you explained it. You have a gift, Marcus Webb. Do not waste it. A gift. Right. more like a curse. I looked at Vinny, who had dimmed to a faint glow, their energy clearly spent. They'd done their part, spoken their truth. It wasn't their fault that every species in the galaxy had spent 10,000 years turning mathematics into mythology. I thought about my options. Give the information to Krell, who'd definitely use it as a weapon. Stay silent and watch this room tear itself apart fighting over incomplete data. Hand over my pad and let someone else make the choice, which was just cowardice with extra steps. Or option 4, the most human option possible, finish the sentence. But do it my way. All right, I said, pulling up my calculation interface. Everyone shut up for 5 minutes. I need to think. The room fell silent. I could feel thousands of eyes on me as I worked through the equations. It was actually beautiful mathematics, elegant in its simplicity once you understood the framework. The coordinates resolved themselves like a puzzle clicking into place. And when I saw where they pointed, I almost laughed. Because of course that's where it was. I looked up at the expectant crowd, at Krell's hungry expression, at Thresk's desperate hope, at little Dr. Kimmett, who just wanted to understand. And I decided to translate it the only way that made sense, as a human. All right, I said, I've got it. The foundation, the source of all creation, the answer to the universe's greatest mystery, is located at ... I paused for dramatic effect because if I was going down, I was going down with style. The one place you're all too dumb to look. Explain, Commander Krell growled, his patience clearly at an end. I pulled up a holographic display of the galaxy, my calculations floating in the air as glowing numbers. The coordinates point to the barycenter, the gravitational center point between all galaxies. Not inside any galaxy, not near any star system, just floating in the absolute middle of everything, where the math says it has to be. That is intergalactic void, Thresk said slowly. There is nothing there. We have surveyed it. Empty space for millions of light years in every direction. Exactly, I grinned. That's the joke. You've all been looking for this mystical foundation, this source of ultimate power, and it's been sitting in the most obvious spot possible. The literal center of everything. You know why you never found it? Because it was too obvious. You were searching distant corners of space, exploring exotic dimensions, diving into black holes, when the answer was staring you in the face the whole time. I expanded the display, showing the mathematical elegance of it. The foundation isn't a place or a thing, it's a position. The point where all gravitational forces in the universe balance out. The eye of the cosmic hurricane. It's not hiding, you just never thought to look there. Because you were too busy treating this like a treasure hunt instead of a math problem. Target Kimmett stared at the display, her large eyes reflecting the glowing numbers. Then she started laughing. High-pitched, slightly hysterical giggling that echoed through the hall. What is funny? Krell demanded. We are idiots, Kimmett gasped between laughs. 10,000 years. 10,000 years of pilgrimages and holy wars and philosophical debates, and the answer was basic geometry. Basic. We teach this to children. And then Vinny started making sounds again, not the cosmic harmonics from before. This was different, lighter. It sounded like crystal wind chimes in a breeze, musical and bright. Their glow intensified, pulsing with what I could only describe as amusement. Vinny was laughing at us. Through the chaotic, non-translated communication that followed, something became clear through gesture and shared math symbols. Vinny confirmed what I'd calculated. The coordinates were correct. But more than that, they conveyed something else. Approval. Thresk approached slowly, his head tilted. The human passed a test, he said, wonder in his voice. This was a test. Vinny pulsed and a pattern I'd learned meant affirmation. Through Kimmett's increasingly excited translation attempts, using math as a common language, the truth emerged. The Vastru had been coming to this station every 10,000 years not to deliver prophecy, but to evaluate. To see if any species had evolved past treating the first language as mystical revelation. To see if anyone would recognize it for what it truly was. Information, science, provable, calculable truth. Every other species had failed. They'd taken the mathematics and turned it into religion, weaponized it, philosophized it, fought wars over interpretation. Humans, the youngest spacefaring species, brand new to the galactic stage, had taken one look at the most sacred mystery in the universe and said, "Oh, that's just math homework. You are not special. I told the assembled crowd because apparently I'd lost all sense of self-preservation. None of us are. You guys just forgot that the universe doesn't care about your theology or your politics. Physics is physics. Math is math. Vinny's species figured that out, and they've been waiting for someone else to catch up. Commander Krell looked like he'd swallowed something toxic. But the power. There is no power, I interrupted. Or rather, the power is understanding, that's it. That's the whole point. The foundation is a coordinate that proves the universe is fundamentally comprehensible. It's not magic, it's not divine, it's just reality following rules. Once you understand that, actually understand it, you stop looking for shortcuts and start doing the work. The human is correct, Thresk said quietly. He looked at me with an expression I'd never seen on his face before, something like respect. We were so focused on what we might gain that we forgot to simply learn. Dr. Kimmett approached Vinny, her datapad held out like an offering. She showed them my calculations, my notes, my sarcastic annotations in the margins where I'd written things like, obviously a gravitational equation dummy, and this is literally just calculus, people. Vinny examined the pad, then made a sound like approval. From somewhere within their crystalline structure, a small shard broke free and floated toward me. It was warm when it touched my palm, and immediately I felt something change. The sound of Vinny's voice, which had been pure mathematics before, now had words attached. Finally, Vinny's voice echoed in my head, clear as day. Someone who does not worship mysteries. Someone who solves them instead. I just wanted to fix a coffee machine, I said weakly. And yet you broke through 10 millennia of stubborn ignorance in 2 hours. Your species thinks small, acts practically. You do and seek cosmic significance because you too busy trying to make the coffee machine work, Vinny pulsed with amusement. This is wisdom your galaxy has forgotten. Keep this gift. You will need translators for the first language when teaching others. Teaching? I'm not a teacher, I'm barely qualified to. You translated creation itself into homework. You will do fine. And with that, Vinny began to fade, their energy finally depleted. But unlike previous visits that had ended in confusion and conflict, this one ended in understanding. The hall remained peaceful, contemplative. I looked down at the crystal in my hand, then at the thousands of aliens staring at me. So, I said into the silence. Anyone want to help me fix that coffee machine? The Galactic Council meeting that followed was the most tedious experience of my life, and I once sat through a 6-hour training seminar on proper waste disposal protocols. Every species wanted to formally acknowledge what had happened. There were ceremonies, speeches. Ambassador Thresk gave an hour-long address about humanity's contribution to galactic understanding that made me want to crawl out of my own skin. Commander Krell, in a move that shocked everyone, publicly admitted that the Karzan had misunderstood the Keeper's message for 10,000 years and pledged to redirect military resources toward scientific education. I just sat there still in my maintenance jumpsuit, wishing I was anywhere else. When they finally got around to offering me positions, promotions, and honors, I declined them all. I appreciate it, I told the assembled council. Really, but I'm a maintenance tech. I like fixing things. I like solving problems with my hands. Making me a diplomat or a professor or whatever would be like promoting a plumber to chief of surgery, because he successfully unclogged a drain. But you possess unique insight, Thresk insisted. You understand the first language, I understand one aspect of it, and barely. What you need aren't people like me. You need people willing to treat mysteries like problems. To stop putting things on pedestals and start taking them apart to see how they work. I gestured to Dr. Kimmett, who'd been frantically taking notes throughout the entire council session. Kimmett gets it. She's already working through the implications. Promote her. Kimmett looked up, startled, her datapad nearly slipping from her damp fingers. No, I am merely a junior researcher. You're a scientist who actually wants to learn instead of just wanting to be right. That's more valuable than anything I can offer. The council eventually agreed to let me return to my regular duties, though they insisted on assigning me a significantly higher security clearance and a private workspace. They also agreed to fund Dr. Kimmett's research into the first language, with the understanding that all findings would be shared freely among species. Commander Krell approached me as the meeting dispersed. For a moment, I thought he might crush my skull for embarrassing him. Instead, he offered a gesture I'd learned was the Karzan sign of respect. You fought without weapons and won, he said. This is worthy of recognition. I didn't fight anyone. I just did math. Exactly. And with that cryptic statement, he left. Dr. Kimmett became my unlikely friend over the following weeks. She'd visit my workshop bringing strange alien snacks and asking questions about human mathematical education. I'd explain that humans weren't special. We just had the advantage of being new and therefore hadn't had time to develop complex cultural baggage around the Keeper's S message. But you saw what others could not, she insisted during one visit. That must mean something. It means I'm good at pattern recognition and bad at respecting authority, I said, recalibrating a pressure sensor. That's not divine insight. That's just being a decent troubleshooter. The crystal Vinny had given me stayed on my workbench. Occasionally, it would pulse and translate stray bits of the first language from old recordings researchers brought me. Mostly, it just sat there, proof that the universe's greatest mystery had been solved by a guy who mainly knew how to fix leaky pipes. 3 weeks after the incident, I finally got the coffee machine working properly. It had taken that long because the council kept interrupting my work with ceremonies and interviews. But eventually, I tracked down the hydraulic leak, replaced the damaged components, and powered it back up. It hummed to life, began percolating, and then started making sounds. Not mechanical sounds, harmonic sounds. Mathematical progressions. The coffee machine was speaking in the first language. I stared at it. The crystal on my workbench pulsed, translating the message. Optimal brewing temperature achieved through quantum thermodynamics, and I unplugged the coffee machine. Not today, universe, I said firmly. I just fixed you. You don't get to become a cosmic oracle on me now. Be a coffee machine. That's all I ask. The machine fell silent. The crystal pulsed with what I chose to interpret as amusement. Behind me, I heard Ambassador Thresk's familiar clicking laugh. Having difficulties, Marcus? The coffee machine achieved enlightenment. I'm rejecting it on philosophical grounds. A very human response. Thresk accepted a cup of coffee I'd brewed the old-fashioned way, before the machine got weird. I have been meaning to ask. What will you do with your newfound fame? Surely you have ambitions beyond maintenance? I looked around my workshop. At the organized tools, the half-disassembled equipment waiting for repair, the satisfying chaos of problems waiting to be solved. Then I looked at the crystal sitting quiet on my bench, representing mysteries I'd accidentally conquered. I think I'll stay right here, I said. Someone's got to keep this station running. And besides, every time I fix something, I learn how it works. That's enough for me. You could study the first language further. Unlock more of its secrets. The secrets aren't going anywhere. But the waste reclamation system in Sector 7 is making concerning noises, and that seems more immediately important. I took a sip of my coffee. Here's what I learned, Thresk. The universe is full of mysteries, and they're all just problems we haven't solved yet. The fancy ones don't matter more than the mundane ones. Fixing a coffee machine or translating cosmic truth, it's all the same process. Observe, analyze, solve. Everything else is just ego. Thresk was quiet for a long moment. Then he clicked his beak in his species' version of a smile. Perhaps that is why the Vastrud chose to reveal themselves now. They needed someone too stubborn to be impressed by gods. I'm not stubborn, I'm just lazy. Being impressed takes effort. After Thresk left, I sat in my workshop, drinking coffee that had been brewed by a machine that briefly understood the fundamental nature of reality. A new maintenance request came through my datapad. Faulty atmospheric regulator in the diplomatic suites. Basic stuff. Easy fix. I grabbed my toolkit and headed out, leaving the crystal behind. It pulsed one more time as I left, and even without touching it, I understood the message. Go fix things, human. The universe works better when someone maintains it. Yeah, I muttered. I'm on it, and that's the thing about being human in a galaxy full of advanced species. We're not smarter, we're not stronger, and we're definitely not more enlightened. But we're really, really good at looking at problems, and instead of being intimidated by them, our first instinct is to ask, how do I fix this? Turns out, that's exactly what the universe needed. Someone willing to treat ancient cosmic mysteries like broken appliances. Someone too practical to be mystical. Someone who, when faced with the words of creation itself, just wanted to get back to making sure the coffee machine worked. The universe is full of mysteries. But mysteries are just puzzles we haven't solved yet. And if there's one thing humans excel at, it's refusing to accept that any puzzle is unsolvable. We just roll up our sleeves and get to work. Even if it means finishing sentences that gods left incomplete.